right, and we're in Zoom land with Cory Wong. Cory, man, thanks so much for joining us today,
Thanks for having me.
and congrats on surviving 2020.
Yeah, it was kind of a tough one for a lot of people, and we all found our own way to get through it.
Yeah, I've been asking everybody. So, what did you learn about yourself in the past year?
I learned that through hard times and through adversity, there's always a way to stay creatively charged, even though it may feel like things are coming at you fast, things are coming at you hard. If you are a person called to a creative lifestyle, which I do believe that everybody is, we all just express it in different ways or choose to manifest the expression of that in different ways. There's always a way to make it happen. And for me, it was a lot less touring, a lot less playing live, and a lot more writing and recording at home. And I think, one of the lessons in there is if the ideas are there and where there's a will, there's a way, I guess, to use an old term.
Yeah. Speaking of Cory Wong. So, Cory, you have so many different worlds of music. Some people have discovered you through our world, the jazz side, Vulfpeck, and everything else in between. But for you, how did you come to the music? For folks who are just discovering you for the first time, how did you get your story? How did you get into music?
Well, I actually started as a punk rock ska kid. That's what got me first interested into playing music on the guitar. And I played clarinet and I played saxophone and piano and drums and other things in the school bands. And those things just kind of came natural to me. Once I really understood an instrument, the mechanics, once I understood the mechanics, my ears and my, I could kind of figure it out. The guitar and the bass, I fell in love with due to punk rock and 90s alternative rock and Red Hot Chili Peppers and that sort of thing. And then in college, I got very much into the jam band thing.
Right.
And from there into jazz fusion. And part of that then started to make sense because when I grew up, my dad had a huge record collection of the ECM catalog, the CTI catalog, the Columbia catalog, the Blue Note catalog, all these records around the house. And, when we'd take road trips, he'd be playing Weather Report in the car. So I grew up listening to a lot of this music, and to me, it was just always there. It's this thing that had always existed, that was always interesting to me, but I hadn't really done the deep dive. When I got into college, all of a sudden that music and the exploration that those artists were taking really became something of interest and something that seemed really powerful to me and something that I could utilize within my own artistic self. So I went full force into Weather Report, Mahavishnu Orchestra, Pat Metheny, and then, of course, on the guitar side of things, the Scofields, Frizzells, Pat Martino, that sort of world of guitar playing. And for a while, I just wanted to be Pat Metheny. And then, it continued to morph, and I got more into the funk and R&B side of things. I grew up and still live in Minneapolis, and the Minneapolis funk, the Minneapolis sound is just kind of always present. It's in the water. It's in the local scene. A lot of the groups that I played with when I was cutting my teeth, learning how to play, some of the bands, I was the only one in the band that wasn't Prince alumni. So, so I learned from a lot of those musicians that were his band for years, the New Power Generation and Revolution, and some of those other bands that, I just grew up as, to me, they were just the people that were on the gig that I looked up to. It wasn't, oh my gosh, this is the person from this Prince album. Of course, eventually when I found that out, I was like, oh, whoa, that's pretty cool. Yeah. But it wasn't the same as, I don't know, to me it was, these guys are legends and I love the way they play, but that's what was more important to me than, oh, these guys played with Prince. So it just kind of naturally, that sound and that sort of playing came out of me. And here I am now, kind of an amalgamation and a molded form of all those inspirations and influences that got me here today.
Speaking of Cory Wong. So, Cory, let's go back to the Chili Peppers for a moment. So, which guitar guy were you? Were you Dave Navarro guy, Frusciante guy?
Well, Frusciante is my cat. I love Frusciante. But a lot of people like to hate on the Navarro era of the Chili Peppers,
Yeah.
which basically is just the album One Hot Minute.
Right.
And to me, he gets unfairly criticized in that because I think also the band was going through a really tough time as well.
Probably, yeah.
To put it mildly. For anybody who's read the Anthony Kiedis autobiography or the Flea autobiography, there's some information in there. And just knowing, if you were just around paying attention, that was a tough era for the band. But I really like Navarro, and I love what he contributed to that band.
I forgot to mention, of course, Hello Slovak as well, for that
Yes.
amazing guitarist. But
Yep.
yeah, I always thought that Navarro got the short shrift on that because I think he was the perfect guy for that time.
Totally. And with his connection with Flea and Jane's Addiction and that sort of thing. Actually, funny enough, people can't see this, but I still have, I'm moving offices right now.
Nice.
In my house, but I have a Guitar World magazine with Flea and Dave Navarro on the front of it, still from when I was a kid.
Wow.
Learning, I still have the guitar tab and bass tab books for One Hot Minute and Blood Sugar Sex Magic, those two albums. I learned them both on bass and guitar.
Really?
Yeah, so those were hugely influential for me, both of those albums.
That's so cool. Speaking of guitar, let's geek out for a second on the gear. So what are you using these days for choice?
Well, I'm a Fender Strat guy. I'm a Strat guy. So I've been a Fender Stratocaster user basically since I started playing the guitar. And as far as bass, I use a jazz bass, and I got a Music Man and a couple other things. But guitar gear, I've been using a DV Mark Raw Dog amp, which is the Eric Gale signature amp.
Ooh, yeah.
And
that nice spot.
Oh yeah. And I have a lot of different guitars, amps, pedals. I love using the Wampler Ego compressor for a compressor pedal. I like the Vertex overdrives. I actually have my own Neural DSP plugin called the Archetype Cory Wong, where we developed like my signature amp sound, my signature pedal sounds, all in a plugin. So I use that for pretty much all the recording I do now. And Stratocaster is just home for me. Just feels like home base.
What is it about the Strat? Because some people they just stick with the Les Paul. Some people just stick with obviously the Strat. Some people go with the Gibson. But for you, what is it about the Strat?
Each guitar has a different tone of its own, obviously. It has somewhat of a signature sound. But within that guitar, the range of what that signature sound can be is very different. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the people that play the Stratocaster, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, Eric Johnson, Yngwie Malmsteen, John Mayer, all these different voices, Dire Straits guy, Mark Knopfler, David Gilmour from Pink Floyd.
Right.
There's so many different sounds that you can get out of the Stratocaster. It's just what instrument draws your voice out. And for me, I'm such a clean guitar tone nut. I love clean guitar tone. And for me, I like a clean guitar tone with a kind of a bubbly round top end to the tone, a little bit of a scooped mid-range, and just something that's got a to it rather than a and although I can get that aggressive attack through the way that I pick and through the way that I play, it balances out with the way that the Stratocaster, it's just natural tone, it's natural pickups, where when I play a Les Paul, it just doesn't give me the same thing. Now, a Tele has a different kind of attack to it, has a different type of attack and response. But to me, the Stratocaster it draws out my voice in a way that's more effortless than what other guitars do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I play a little bit of guitar, and for some reason, I can play a Telecaster, brings out all my strengths. I play a Strat, It brings out all my weaknesses.
Yeah, it's funny how that works.
So yeah, so I grew up as a huge Steve Cropper fan. So that's how I learned how to play.
Ah,
By jamming on Steve Cropper, learning Steve Cropper songs, and the stacks and all that whole thing. But so
yeah.
I am a huge Clapton fan, a huge Strat guy because of Robert Cray and Clapton, all the guys you mentioned. So yeah,
Ooh,
you
yeah.
totally explain why for the Strat.